G'day everyone. So, the last few vlogs, I've started a bit of a back and forth about this anatomy book that we're working on, as well as, some other stuff that's in the pipeline. This video is going to be specifically about Epic Anatomy, the project that we're going to be working on this year. Hopefully to release mid to late last half of the year, because it's going to be a big project. And before tackling this big project, we're really sort of starting production on this in the coming weeks. I want to head in the right direction. This is a product intended for you. So in line with that, I wanted to just sort of put this out there as a place to get feedback, get ideas, get suggestions. I'll be sharing the process with you as we develop it, but starting off on the right foot, starting off to sort of see if what I have in my head aligns with what you want. And then also there will be some stuff that you want that you can share that I may not be aware of that I can then incorporate in this very early planning phase. So let me, I'm gonna show some different references of some various books and ebooks so we can sort of get that discussion going. But I want to start off by basically opening it up to you guys. When I say I'm making a book, it's going to be called Epic Anatomy. What comes to mind for you? I put out a poll late last year where there were a bunch of sort of different resource ideas we were thinking of working on. Epic Anatomy, just as the concept, the words Epic Anatomy, just won by a landslide. And that would have meant something to people. I think anyone, especially if you voted on it and you're watching this, if you clicked on that, or if you would have, what comes to mind? What makes you want to get Epic Anatomy, both in terms of the content that's in it and the style that you imagine it would be produced as, maybe what level it's aimed at, and what kind of things it would cover. So any and all ideas that you have will be really helpful. I'm going to get help from my team to sort of bring some of the more common or interesting ideas together and find what the best fits and pieces are. So to start off with, I'm going to talk about scope. So this is the only other book I've made in its entirety, creating characters. I made it quite a while ago. It feels a bit dated now, but it's still I put everything into it. I'm still really proud of it. But one of the reasons I never really came back to making books is because I went through a publisher to do this, and we kind of got ripped off in a number of different ways. And then this was originally published by Impact. There you can see it on the spine. They went bust a couple of years back and were bought out by Penguin something, a bigger publisher. So we don't even really have a contact there. We had an agent who wasn't really even paying us, and we barely got any cut from this, and it took a lot of work. So it was a bit heartbreaking. Those of you who went through this journey back in that time will remember how much it mattered to me to make this. And we at least got our time paid back in terms of the amount of effort we put into it, but it wasn't something that we could build on. And it was also a little bit I wouldn't say traumatizing, but it definitely had made me have hesitations in going into it again. And also the contract I had at the time meant that I couldn't make another one without it offering it to them first. So now with time past and all of that stuff not being an issue, we want to approach this in an entirely self-published way. And I want the scope to be of a similar size. So this is, I think, 140-ish pages. It's 145, but not including covers and stuff. So it'll be about a similar scope, and it will be available digitally and physically. We're probably going to crowdfund because this will be our first time self-publishing. So we need to know sort of what amounts we're ordering, and also, how big we should go. Maybe if it goes well, we could add some chapters if the crowdfunding, does really well. Anyway, so that is the scope. And I will be getting help this time around. So this was entirely me, 100% solo me, except for I think that they did give me a designer who sort of pieced it all together, and they, at the time the publisher sort of provided a copywriter and stuff. We're going to be doing this all in-house. I'll be doing all the structural work, all the writing, a lot of the foundational drawing stuff. Alicia will be doing a lot of the polished drawing stuff. I think we'll share the load in either direction sometimes. I'll polish some stuff, she'll do some of the foundational stuff, but primarily I'm the structure and the tutor and the planner and the presenter. Alicia will be the polisher and pretty fire. And then we also have some talented people on the team. Jen will be helping with design work, and some other people who will be able to help with the copywriting stuff. So we have a great team to put together an awesome resource. So let me talk about what I had in mind, what I was going to approach it as, and just share some references. But I'd love to sort of get your thoughts, get your writing in the comments before you listen too much about what I say, because I'd like to just sort of get your feel for what you had in mind first. And then also, if you have any comments or things you love or don't love about what I share, please also share that. So to me, Epic Anatomy is informational. It has a lot of useful stuff on how to draw anatomy, because anatomy is difficult to sort of enter into, especially for artists who struggle with that sort of thing. But anatomy is a very information dense topic. And anyone who's ever tried to find a guide to anatomy will know that it's really hard to find one that is both informative and enjoyable or approachable, maybe is the other word. That's why the only other ebook thing that I've put out there was Easy Anatomy. It was entirely focused on simplifying. So I want Epic Anatomy to have that. I want to lay down the groundwork of simplification first in an appealing way. But I picture the focus of Epic Anatomy being the coolness, what it looks like, making it look cool, and then sort of explaining it and contextualizing that as part of it, but kind of secondary to providing the cool stuff with the information. Reason being, okay, let me let my phone around. It's okay. So I got some references here. Let's start off with a few digital references. Some of these are nicely old, which is great because it shows some of the really traditional roots that educating artists with anatomy sort of comes from. It's really this almost feels like an anatomical reference for a doctor. Look at this. This is not for today's artist. It's packed with useful stuff. Really cool stuff. And there's a lot of references here, a lot of books that I'll be sort of going through in detail that I can find interesting sort of approaches and guides in. But it just doesn't, obviously it's older, but it doesn't feel like today's sort of approach. This is a more recent, more successful approach to anatomy. This is anatomy for sculptors, presented in a much more modern way, obviously intended more for 3D artists and even actual sculptors with clay and stone. They have a lot of stone references and stuff, which is really cool. So this is sort of, to me, feels like in the middle ground of where I'd be aiming. There's some great simplification. It's a little more color-coded, a little more picture-heavy, and less focused entirely on, presenting all the data and the information and writing it all out. So I have a whole bunch of references there. These are also really interesting too, and this sort of goes further along in the direction that I'm more interested in personally. So let me start off with these two. This one here, Drawing Cutting Edge Comics by Christopher Hart. This was actually a bit of a compilation. It's Christopher Hart's book, but he works with other artists in it, and also works with a colorist. So Christopher Hart has produced a large variety of books over the years, and I wouldn't say the comic style is his strong suit, but in this book, I feel like there was, I don't know, because it was a collaborative effort, I feel like the result was pretty strong, especially for, 12, 13-year-old me sort of ate this up and found this really helpful. I think the reason it was so helpful, aside from it being simple, is it was just packed with these just random, cool, extreme things. So when I think Epic Anatomy, I actually think more like this, which is, almost nothing like, what have we got? Michael Hampton's Figure and Invention. There you go. Look at this. Lovely. Really informative stuff here, and I get bored. Whereas here, I'm I just want to look at the cool pictures. And honestly, just looking at being interested in looking at the pictures is half the battle to improving as an artist. If you find things you see as appealing, that you're inspired by, it makes you pick up a pencil and start drawing. So that's going to be my first priority. And this is a great reference because this was that for me when I was going through developing as an artist early on. It was very style first, which I love. Now this is an approach to comics, so it touches on a lot more than anatomy, but when it does anatomy, I found that really compelling. So moving on, we have Masters of Anatomy. This is a really great example of what I'm sort of angling towards. Now, obviously, disclaimer, it's a bit too late for it, but there's some nudity because anatomy involves the body, and sometimes the body has bits. Surprise. Okay. So, Masters of Anatomy. This one is really, really cool because there's no words. It's literally just anatomy, but style first. It's just different people. I'm gonna go in the top left corner because YouTube will be less strict about showing this stuff. But as you can see, as I flick through, it's really just like different artists drawing a male and a female on various angles, and that's it. That's the whole book. Not a word of text aside from the intro. And you can just see the vastly different stylistic approach to anatomy with each of them. And it's so interesting. Like, I find looking through a book like this way more enthralling and interesting, and then as a result, educational than looking through an anatomy like textbook, because there's so much detail here and there's so much style here. And they're working with the same foundation of facts and data and information of how the muscles are interconnected and how it all works. And yet it's clearly shown in different ways. It shows there's many, many different ways to skin a cat. So that is a brilliant example. Obviously, we can't pull off that variety of styles because we have a limited number of artists, but it just goes to show how like approaching it from an interesting and style-first perspective can be really cool. 21 Draw, both books are very similar. They're like Masters of Anatomy, very style first. Use various artists to teach these different lessons. There's not a lot in here regards to anatomy, but when there is, it's presented in a really interesting way by really skilled and varied artists. So, where are we? I think I joined in this one. But yeah, I think this one's really cool. Anyway, you get the idea. So I think that sort of tells you where I'm coming from. And I just wanted to open up a dialogue. I want to get your feedback. In terms of like the content, I picture it just like without having done any sort of deep dive yet, starting very foundational. And then I want to cover action sort of to a degree, some poses. I think a big part of anatomy is how it moves and how it functions, and be able to draw, like, there are places that just sort of get left behind or treated as uninteresting, whether it be the back, the neck, the, calves and feet and, all that stuff. So, and forearms is another one of those things where it's like really tricky to sort of, for people to know how that works. So trying to do all that stuff in really interesting ways that makes it understandable and exciting to learn. And I also want to go to extremity to, like I sort of showed in that Christopher Hart one, where like those examples of anatomy were really extreme. Doing that in varying ways so you can sort of show veins, so you can sort of show how to caricaturize and hulkify, but then also what are other versions of that, like starting to involve a little bit of fat, starting to involve like different ways of warping proportions in interesting ways, male and female. And that is the approach I want to make it. I just want the whole book to feel like a ride through what could otherwise be a really banal topic as something that is like, wow, you can do a lot with this and make really wild and interesting and epic things. So that's my vision. I would love to hear your feedback. I'm very excited about this project. It's going to be a longer one, but I think it'll be really worthwhile, and I think it'll be even more worthwhile because we'll be working on this together, not only in the team here, but I'll be able to share what we're working on as we work on it and get your feedback, and it's going to be great. So let me know in the comments, and see you in the next video.